Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Wistrcill.
I'm JT Wistrcill.
And we're back for another edition of From the Couch. It's been a while since we've been with you. Hopefully, everybody's staying safe. But the NBA playoffs are getting started. And we're doing our NBA playoff preview show right now. So let's get fired up.
Yeah.
Are you fired up for the playoffs, JT?
I'm extremely fired up for the playoffs. I really enjoyed the bubble. I thought it worked out about as well as it could for the NBA. Lots of exciting matchups and stuff like that. And one of the things that was so enjoyable was just how many guys improved over all that time off of the NBA. I mean, it's a 4-month time gap like that. So we saw teams and players get better, like the Phoenix Suns, some not do as well, the Memphis Grizzlies. So I really enjoyed the bubble and excited to see how that success translates to the playoffs.
Yep. Well, that's pretty exciting. So what we're doing is we're starting with the Eastern Conference. We're going to go series by series, and then we're going to talk about who we think is going to come out of the East. We're going to do the West series by series, and then who's going to come up by the West, and then we're going to pick our champion as well. So we're starting in the East, JT. What series are we going with first?
We're doing the Bucks and Magic, and as we talked about, the playoffs themselves, they're exciting. This series is not. I expect a 4-0 sweep by Milwaukee. Credit to Steve Clifford, really underrated coach for the Magic. They got a lot of underrated players as well, and prayers up to Jonathan Isaac, who's having a promising bubble before his injury. But Milwaukee's the 1 seed for a reason, best defense in the NBA, and they will make quick and easy work of the Orlando Magic.
I'd love to come up with some reason to dispute that.
I know.
But I can't. The Magic, I guess somebody has to be the 8th seed out of the East.
I know.
And that's who you get. The Bucks just need to stay healthy. Win 4 games and stay healthy.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Raptors and Nets. JT, tell us about that
Fortunately,
series.
the drop-off from the 8th to the 7th seed isn't much. Honestly, I'm impressed that Jacques Vaughn, who's the interim coach for the Nets, has even been able to get this team to the 7th seed. I mean, it's one of the worst NBA rosters if you look at it on paper, but Karis LeVert stepped up, Joe Harris stepped up, and a guy like Timothy Luat-Carrera, I think I messed up his last name, but these guys have all gotten so much better in the bubble. I mean, guys like Carrera weren't even on the roster, but this Toronto team is awesome. There's a reason they won the finals last year. It wasn't just Kawhi Leonard. Their depth, their experience, it stands out. And like we said, Brooklyn's got almost none of that. This is another sweep in my eyes.
All right, so Raptors, Nets, KD and Kyrie are not playing.
No.
Or it would be a good series.
I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie and DeAndre Jordan aren't even.
It would be a good series.
Bad.
Here's the crazy thing. I think the Nets sneak out a win. I'm giving them one win.
They might.
Giving them one win in the bubble. The Raptors will, go up 2-0 and relax in game 3, and the Nets will sneak up. So I got the Nets winning 1 game, and but not much of a series.
Like you said, I mean, credit to the Nets for even moving up a spot from the 8th. I mean, what they've done is incredible. And we saw last year in the Raptors' first playoff game against the Magic, DJ Augustine scored 26, Lowry 0. Magic stole that game from them. So you never know with the Raptors in the playoffs.
Yep, there you go. All right, Sixers against the Celtics.
Yeah. 3 versus 6. This is an exciting series to me. Even without Ben Simmons, I think Joel Embiid presents a big matchup problem for them. They got Daniel Theis, who I think is a great small ball center, but not going to be great for guarding a big guy like Embiid. So if he really imposes his will and dominates, I think they'll have a chance. But unfortunately, I think the depth of the Celtics, they're made for playoff ball. They got like 6 or 7 guys where you're like, those are starters and really good players. And I think in the end, they squeeze it out. Philly's been dysfunctional all year, and I think that will end in a loss. I have them winning 2 games only in the series. And I think Brett Brown's going to be fired when this is over. Just too much talent and too much disappointment the last few years.
Yeah. Celtics, Sixers, I've got the Celtics 4-1.
Yeah.
The playoffs are all about matchups, and they do have a matchup problem in the middle. But that's the only one.
I know, yes.
Other than that, they have matchup problems all over across the other way. So I think Celtics roll on 4-1. So, all right. Pacers and Heat.
Yeah, I think this is a fun game against 2 of the more underrated teams in the Eastern Conference and NBA. Both got teams with a lot of depth, but as of right now, the Heat's depth is playing a little better. When you look at the Pacers, they're missing Sabonis, who was really good for them. They're missing they're missing Jeremy Lamb, not TJ Warren. TJ Warren's obviously played great, so Jeremy Lamb, Victor Oladipo's not 100%. They got other guys in there who give them something, and they play really hard defensively, well coached by Nate McMillan, but not enough on the offensive end. When you get red hot, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler's playoff experience, and he did really shut down TJ Warren when they played earlier. They have other wings too, like a Jay Crowder and an Andre Iguodala they can throw at him. So I do see them squeezing out 2 games, the Pacers, just because they play so hard, but have this going 6 games with a Heat win.
I've got another 4-1 series here with the Heat. I think they're playing really well. I think that, as you mentioned, the Pacers are missing some of the key guys.
Yeah.
Oladipo is not is on 100%. That's obvious. So I think the Heat roll them 4-1.
Yeah.
In fact, I almost put a sweep there.
I almost did too.
So, well, you gave them 2 victories, so you can't say you almost gave them a sweep.
I promise you, I almost did think it was 4-1.
Okay.
Like 4-1 or something like that. But I mean, I thought the Pacers would struggle to win games, and they've won so much. They just continue to squeak out and do things under Nate McMillan. So I gave them the credit of 2 games.
Okay, we'll go from there. So, all right, now we move into the conference semifinals.
Yes.
Right? So we have the Bucks and the Heat.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I got Milwaukee coming through here. I think it could be a really interesting series. Bam Adebayo has actually been the best defender on Giannis from holding him to a point standpoint. But in the end, I think Giannis steps up. I think the Bucks defense is going to pose a lot of problems for the Miami offense. And I really think Giannis dominates in this series. And this is going to prove he's just so unguardable. It's just difficult for anyone to contain him. And I do think Milwaukee wins this. I think they'll win it in 5. I do think they'll win it in 5. I think Miami could make it interesting. I'm a huge Jimmy Butler guy personally, but just not enough. I just the reigning MVP for a reason.
Okay, I'm going 6 games here. I think Milwaukee pulls it out. I think the Heat get hot in a couple games, throw in a ton of threes. You know, make it the type of game. Maybe Giannis gets in foul trouble or something. So I'm going 4-2 Bucks on that one. So, all right, good series. This next one, Raptors Celtics.
Yeah, very good series, and I think it could go 7. And I really do. I have it going 7. And I think the Celtics just squeak one out, and the reason that is, I think the Celtics have an ascending guy in Jason Tatum. The first time we were really introduced to him was that Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron a few years ago, where he dunked on LeBron even. I just think they got some guys who are, in those moments, capable of hitting big shots. Lowry, he's so up and down. He was great in the finals last year, but as I pointed out earlier, a 0-point game. He got outscored by 26 points against a very inferior point guard to him. I think we could see the Raptors revert back to the team that LeBron dominated for a while. I think Kawhi was the guy for this team and did so much for them, and I think they're going to miss him. But I still think they're good enough with the depth and Nick Nurse to make this a really interesting series. But in the end, I got Boston because of those guys I have faith in the clutch.
Okay, so I've got the Raptors in 7. I do think it goes to 7. I got the Raptors. If it gets to 7 games, then I just think that's where the experience and Kyle Lowry pulls it out there in that game. So, you know, nothing against the Celtics, other than I'm not a Celtics fan. But Jason Tatum's been good and sometimes not so good.
Yes.
So he's a little inconsistent. That's a toss-up there. Yeah. But I'm going with Raptors just off experience of last year's finals.
Should be a great series either way.
So there you go. Okay, so Eastern Conference Finals, you've got Bucks Celtics.
I do. Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen
So
there?
one of the big things in this series, I think, will be is Gordon Hayward has said he will leave the bubble for the birth of his child in September. I think that's about the time this series will be played. Could be around the end of the semifinals as well. So they'll miss his presence, I do believe, because they got some depth, but I do think they're more top-heavy, and I think they'd have to start like a Marcus Smart, but then if you look at who would come off the bench after that, it's not a lot. And I think Giannis figures it out once again. I think they'll struggle to guard Giannis. I mean, is Daniel Theis their best guy to guard Giannis? I don't know. I think they got guys like Chris Middleton who will be able to hold him in check. Do think Kemba could really go off. He's a guy we haven't really mentioned with the Celtics yet, but I got the Bucks in a close one. I think it goes 6 games and they squeeze in there. It could be a really great series though, I think. But just the loss of Gordon Hayward and Milwaukee is just amazing on defense and Giannis.
So I've got the Bucks Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think the Raptors blew everything they had to get past the Celtics into the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they got nothing left. And I'm going to give them 1 game in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think it's 4-1 Bucks. And I think the Bucks just kind of, in some ways, waltz into the into the finals, overall finals. Getting past the Raptors. So we both have the Bucks in the finals.
Be a redemption for Giannis too, as they were kind of the defense. They built the wall. That was when the Giannis playoff question started to emerge. So it would be a fun and cool story if Giannis was able to overcome that Toronto defense.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to the West. We're starting with a lot of the professional analysts picking an upset, 8-1. So Lakers, Portland. What do you got?
Or just honestly just making it out to be more interesting than it can be. Look, I'm a huge LeBron fan. I think that's known pretty widely, but I don't see it. Look, maybe they win a game. Be stunned if they win 2. I know Dame is so dazzling. CJ was awesome last game. Yusuf Nurkic is exciting. Melo's come back. He's awesome. He's threes. They suck on defense. They are horrendous on defense. And I don't know how they match up. Zach Collins and Carmelo going to guard LeBron and AD. Yes, I trust guys like Caruso, KCP, Danny Green to better lock down a Dame and a CJ than I do those guys for the Blazers, those forwards to stop LeBron and AD. I think LeBron and AD have been coasting Houston, they're not playing for anything. They locked the 1 seed almost automatically after they beat the Clippers in that early game. So I see a 4-0 sweep here. I understand Dame's special and they could maybe get a game, but I just think people are just making it more interesting because Portland's exciting right now.
Yeah. So I'm going to give Portland 1 game.
Yeah.
I think the guards go off for 1 game. But you talked about the matchup problems. The Lakers are going to make this physical. They're going to bang them. They're going to push them. They're going to make it a little ugly at times. They won every game in the 90s, maybe the 80s a few times. Yeah. And old school basketball, Lakers 4-1. So, all right, Clippers, Mavs.
Yeah.
What do you got here?
And I just see the experience winning out here. The Clippers have a veteran deep roster. They probably have the best top to bottom roster in the entire league. And unfortunately, I think Luka and Kristaps are in their first ever playoff series. Not just together, but in general. They've never been there before separately. And I think there's just too much on their plate, and they're going to fall a little bit short. I do think there's a chance for them to maybe squeeze out a game if Kristaps gets hot. This kind of poses a mismatch problem for them, but I like the Clippers' depth, and I think they'll really make things difficult on Luka as the primary ball handler there. So I got a sweep, personally.
Okay. I'm going to give them a game, the Mavs. The Clippers are so deep, so good defensively. They can score anywhere. I think they up the pressure. This is one of those series, though, that if it wasn't in the bubble, I think it would be uglier. I think it would be a sweep or close to it if they weren't in the bubble. The one thing about the bubble, since it takes emotion kind of out of it with the crowd, then it's just the guys firing each other up. And so I don't think the gap between, the players always talk about, playoff basketball, it is such a huge jump. I don't think it'll quite be as much this year. I think the bubble created a natural kind of playoff that already happened, right? And so that allows a team like the Mavs to probably play a little better than they would if they were playing the first 2 games in LA. So I'm going to give them 2 games. I think the Mavs will squeeze out 2. I don't think they'll ever be in doubt, but I'll give them 2 games. So there we go. All right, Nuggets against the Jazz. What do you got here?
As if the loss of Bogdanovich wasn't big enough for Utah going into the bubble, they've just lost Mike Conley, who's going to be with the birth of his son in Columbus. And I just think that's too much on the offensive end to overcome. I mean, Donovan Mitchell has way too much on his plate right now. They need the Joe Ingles of old to show back up. Rudy Gobert's got to continue to have success, which I think he will in some ways because Jokic is very bad at defending the pick and roll, and Gobert is so long if you just got up there to grab those boards. But in the end, just not enough firepower, like the depth of the Nuggets. They're going to get Will Barton and Gary Harris back at some point in this series. And how about Michael Porter Jr.? He has been balling and looking everything like the guy who was one of the best players coming out of high school. So I gave Utah a game in this series. Think Donovan could get hot, but just not enough firepower on offense. So
it's funny. I'm thinking the same thing. Conley, Bogdanovich, that hurts the Jazz. I'd love to think Joe Ingles of old will show up.
I know,
but I think, like you said, the Nuggets have gotten better and had a new star emerge. The Jazz are losing parts. It's not a good thing for the playoffs. So Nuggets in 5. So now we get a kind of an interesting series here. Rockets Thunder. How you feeling
favorite
here?
by far. I mean, I have this one going 7. It's the only first round one I do have going 7. Look, we'll miss out a little bit on the storyline of Russ going against his old team. I do think Russ will eventually show up in this series because I do have it going 7. But how about CP3 versus James Harden? It was only 2 years ago they were in the conference finals taking that Warriors team to a game 7. Now separate teams after the blow up this offseason. I like how both have led their teams once again. CP3, I mean, I thought this Thunder team would be one of the worst teams in the West. And here they are in the 5th seed. Then the Rockets, James Harden led the league in scoring for the 3rd year in a row. Just an off. And we're going to see a lot of that with no Westbrook. Going to have the ball in his hands even more. And the Thunder roster built for playoff basketball, very light on depth. So very interested to see how it plays out. I think James Harden is better than Chris Paul, and I think that's where they're going to have a little bit of an edge. Plus Westbrook is coming back. I think the Thunder's Cinderella story ends here.
Interesting. So this was the hardest one for me to pick of any of them right now. I'm going on a limb here.
You going?
Without Westbrook, I don't think they win the series.
Ooh.
I think that this is where the Rockets' small ball ends. Is that when the game gets slower and there's less possessions and there's a premium on defense and rebounding, that's where every possession is worth so much, and that's where the Thunder beat the Rockets. Now, if Westbrook was there, I think Rockets in 6. Without that, I'm going Thunder in 7. There's my upset special. And it's Westbrook's fault.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's going to be a great series. And Steven Adams is one of the strongest players, and he should dominate the glass.
He's going to get 28 rebounds a game.
He could, honestly.
So there you go. All right, so So you've got Lakers Rockets then in the next round.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
I'm going 5 games. I think they're going to unlock something in Anthony Davis, and I think the Lakers are going to win in 5. I really do. I just think he struggled against them a little earlier, and sometimes he likes to play on the perimeter. Sometimes it does seem like, or catch it outside of the paint more than inside. But I really think playoff time, LeBron's going to fire him up. The coaches are going to empower him. He's going to impose his will against this smaller Rockets team, and I think they're just going to struggle, even with Westbrook who's back. And I think the Lakers end up taking it in 5. Like I said, I really believe in the Lakers. I know people are doubting them right now, but I really think LeBron and AD come out strong and remind everyone who the best duo is in the NBA. So I got Lakers in 5, maybe 6, but I'm sticking Lakers in 5 right now.
All right, I got Lakers Thunder.
Yeah.
Because of and so this is one of those series where I think like a couple of the games are close.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of games that aren't close.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers are just much better than the Thunder, and so I'll give them 6 just because it's the playoffs, and so I'll let the Thunder win 2 games. Yeah. I'm having trouble doing that, but I'm going to go with 2. And the Lakers are just too good, too talented, and they have Steven Adams out there, but they don't have much of an answer for AD and LeBron together. So not many people do.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So now Clippers Nuggets in the other conference semi.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing I didn't talk about with the Clippers earlier. Playoff Kawhi is here. This is when Kawhi is at its best. He kind of load manages during the regular season and chills, and I think they're going to have a lot of problems guarding a guy like Kawhi and stuff like that. Jokic could pose problems, but we've seen in the past he gets very passive. He just doesn't really dominate and impose his will when he really should. He should against a guy like Zubac, who's not the best center the Clippers start with. So I think the Clippers take this in 5 games because the Nuggets, I just don't like the way they match up with them as much. And unless Jokic really says, you know what, I'm going to dominate this series, then this could maybe even go to 7. But I don't think he'll do that. And because of that, I think it goes only 5.
So I'm going to go out on a big limb here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say that Michael Porter Jr. becomes a star in this series. Now, Clippers still win, but it goes to 7.
Wow.
And because of the things you talked about and the fact that Michael Porter Jr. just keeps getting better and better and better. And he's gonna get used to playoff basketball in the first series against the Jazz.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna be ready against the Clippers. So the Clippers, I mean, again, they'll probably have to guard him with Kawhi.
Yes.
And so that Kawhi could get in foul trouble. That's not an easy matchup for Kawhi, because Michael Porter Jr. is so long. Mm-hmm. And, he's not strong in that, but I think he finds himself and at least makes it harder on the Clippers. So, so there's my stretch of the night.
You know what else is, one other thing that's just throughout there, it's crazy. Michael Porter Jr. went 14th in the draft. Could easily be still the best player from that draft. I know, look, Luka will probably be, but his ceiling is just so
Michael Porter could be. You got to remember, though, he was so hurt.
I know, you're right. I know.
Everybody was like, that guy can't play a lick.
It's just amazing.
So, all right, so we got the Western Conference Finals that everybody's looking forward to. In fact, I kind of wish we were just starting with that tomorrow.
Yes, I know.
Let's just put Clippers, Lakers on. Let's play best of 21.
I know.
Just play for 2 weeks.
Yeah, the Battle of LA not taking place in LA, of course. But,
yeah. So what do you got?
I can't imagine it doesn't go 7. I just think it's such a fun, intriguing matchup. Some games LeBron gets the best of Kawhi. Some games Kawhi gets the best of LeBron. Some games Paul George gets hot. But the one constant will be almost every single game, Anthony Davis will dominate, like he did earlier in the bubble game. They have no answers for him. Even with a guy like Montrezl Harrell. Zubac, he could post him up and get points down there. Montrez, he can take him outside and get him in foul trouble. I just think Anthony Davis is the mismatch once again in this series, and I think he's the reason the Lakers pulled that out. That and LeBron.
So I've got the Lakers in 7, but I think it's going to be a very interesting series because I think that the Lakers will struggle to win a couple games early. It'll be really close. And then I can see the Clippers winning a couple games by like 20.
Yeah.
Because Lou Williams will go off. The Lakers will get in foul trouble and be slow. And it'll be like 120 to 102 will be the final. It'll just be like the Lakers just can't score enough points to stay with them a couple of those games. I think it gets to game 7. Anthony Davis, this is his time.
Yeah.
So he's got to show, if he wants to be amongst the best players in the league, this is when he's got to show it. I think he does show it for the most part.
Yeah.
LeBron still steps up when need be and leads them to the finals. So, but I can't wait to watch that series.
Just two best teams in the league, in my opinion.
So I'm excited for that. So, okay, so now we get to the finals. The finals, a lot of people are anticipating Bucks-Lakers.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I got the Lakers in 6. I think Anthony Davis is possibly the perfect guy to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I think Giannis is really going to start with him. Sure, they're going to build the wall a little bit, but I honestly think in one-on-one situations, Anthony Davis can guard him. One thing I still worry about with Giannis, too, if you watch him play, I think sometimes he forces too many threes still. I understand he can shoot them better, but sometimes when guys still lay off him, he takes way too many. I think he sometimes takes 6 a game. I think that's just way too many for him. I think 2 or 3 fine, but I think he'll grow complacent a little bit because he'll struggle to get to the rim, so he might try to shoot more outside, and I think they'll struggle with that. I think LeBron should dominate this series. I think they'll struggle to guard him because I think they'll need Giannis to guard Anthony Davis. So I think if like Chris Middleton's guarding LeBron, it's a big mismatch right there. So I have the Lakers in 6, and I have LeBron capturing a Finals MVP, averaging a triple-double in this series.
Wow.
And being the king and being the first ever player to win 3 Finals MVPs on 3 different teams in a single decade.
Wow. That'd be pretty cool.
Pretty amazing.
Good stats.
Some
Good
GOAT
stats
stuff.
There. Yep. So I think the Lakers will win. I think it will go 7 games. It's so close that I could totally see the Bucks winning in Game 7 as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think my bias is playing in here, just my Lakers bias, and that I think that, that the 2 of them have the 2 best players compared to the Bucks plus players, and there will be a role player for the Lakers that steps up in the finals. I don't know who it'll be.
Kyle Kuzma.
It could be Kuzma. He's their 3rd best player.
I know.
He's not. That's not it.
I'm
talking about like a Caruso or a Quinn Cook or a Waiters Island or whatever.
JR?
It's going to be somebody weird that in the finals people are going to look back and go, man, Davis and LeBron were awesome, but so-and-so did something. And there'll be a game or 2 where somebody steps up, and so I think the Lakers will pull it out, and we'll get to add another banner to the Staples Center.
Which would be great. And if the Bucks did somehow win this, I think it's the perfect passing of the torch, because I do think that the Giannis is the next guy like LeBron, who LeBron was so dominant for so long, considered the best player for so long. I think Giannis is going to have a long stretch like that.
Yep. So, well, great. Well, there's our trip through the NBA playoffs. We hope you enjoyed that. And we'll look forward as we work towards another edition of From the Couch. We'll see you next time.